Happy Saturday, everyone. This is Justin with Parity InfoSec. Today we're going to be going through the newest retirement over on HackTheBox is Sauna. Sauna, if you look at the graphic here, kind of gives away a little bit of what we're going to be dealing with. You see the big 88 on his chest. We're going to be dealing with some Kerberos issues. There will be a little bit of LDAP in there as well, so we'll do some LDAP enumeration, get into some of the Kerberos, the AS rep roasting factor, and then we'll go over the DC sync rights on one of the accounts that we find as we go through that. We're going to be dealing with a little bit of Evil-winRM, but I'm also going to bring in a combination of SharpHound Bloodhound as well as Impacket and Mimikatz and cover a couple different ways that you would go through to get to the final root. So with that, let's get started. As always, we're going to start with an nmap. So I'll just go ahead and do my normal. So I'll do an nmap. I'll do a VB 10 10 10 175, and we'll go ahead and get started with that. As things pop up, in this case we should be seeing some of the ports like okay, so you got port 80. We know we have a web server, but as you see 135 445, we are definitely seeing a Windows box here. You're also going to see that port 88, like I mentioned, it's going to be your Kerberos. Several other for LDAP, you get your 389 and your 636. So we've got a couple different services running on this Windows box, and we'll get started with the port 80. So I'll make sure our burp is on, intercept is off. We'll go ahead and launch our web browser. We'll go straight to the box. And it's a website for Egotistical Bank Repay. Now, while we're doing this, I still want to go back here and I want to run the scripts and versions. And we'll see what comes out of that. Try and get a little bit enumeration done outside of what we're working on. So, like I said, Egotistical Bank. You can see that this leads to a page. Okay, it's a nice little blog page. This is standard writing. You do have a user here, possibly Jenny Joy. You got a James Doe. Got a Johnson and a Watson. So what I like to do is kind of build that list of usernames right out of the gates. So we'll make sure we're in the folder we want to put this in. And let's go through some of those ones. We had Johnson. We had Watson. If we go back up, there's a couple over here that are admin. Not too crazy. But we had a Jenny Joy. And with this, you kind of have to play around. So J Joy, Jenny J. That'll cover maybe a J.Joy. There's a couple different ways that they do usernames. Right now we don't know what that is, so we'll go ahead and just put some in for this sake. Let's see what other pages exist. There's an about, so let's take about us. Looks like they do some loans, no big deal. Keep scrolling down. These are the services they provide. Oh, so here's the team. So right here, nice little list of folks. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing we just did. And just for ease, I'm going to kind of set it off to the side. So Fergus Smith, we'll do an F Smith. We'll do a Fergus S. And then we'll do an F.Smith. And keep going through. I like that they made a Stephen Kerb. Don't know how close they were trying to get with the Kerberos, but nice little tip of the hat. We'll throw admin on there just for the fun of it. So we've got our user list going. That's a pretty lengthy user list. As we hover over, we can kind of look in that left corner about. Look to see if there's anything new. There is a contact. contact. And you've got an info there as well, but I don't think that really matters too much. Contact page. Okay. Nothing kind of divulges itself to us. So let's go back and take a look at our enumeration. See if it came back. It's just about done. We've got our users. We've got our information. We know that it's running LDAP. So I will probably begin with nmap for LDAP. There's a couple different scripts. The one that I like to use for this box was LDAP search. All right, so let's take a look at what came back now that we got a nice lengthy list. So you got a decent amount of ports here on the DNS. It's showing the Egotistical Bank website. It's running on IIS 10. You've got your Kerberos. It does identify the time, 12:46. There should be a time sync issue with this one. If you've got the ability, you can change your local time to match the box. When I originally ran this, I was off by about 7 minutes. And we'll see if that comes in as a factor during this one. So with the LDAP, it gives us that domain. So egotisticalbank.local0. Okay. Same thing down here on 3268. Tells us the host is Sauna. There's that. Okay, there's a 7-hour, 2-minute skew. So we'll see if that comes into play. So we'll go ahead and get started with the LDAP. So I'll do an nmap tactec script. Let's make this big. I'm going to go ahead and clear this screen out. So we'll go ahead and do an nmap. So nmap, and I mean you could specify the port. I like to, so 389, and then say tactec script, and then it's going to be LDAP-search, and then 10.10.10.175. All right, so we got a nice little kickback there. Let's see what we're looking at. So we get a little bit more egotistical-bank local. So that kind of gives us our forest for any kind of activity with domain. We need to just keep that in mind. Egotistical bank. The role owner is Sauna. It's just identifying the box. But we did get some users down here. And a lot of these look kind of normal, but this is an interesting one. Hugo Smith. That didn't come up in our original poll of users. So let's go ahead and add him in. So we'll type in Hugo Smith. H Smith, H. Smith, should be an H, and then Hugo S. All right. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with that list of users. So we'll go back over to this window. We've done this. I want to try and run one of the Impacket scripts. So there's a variety of versions I have on my computer. The current one I like is sitting in share doc. I know it sounds crazy. Python 3. Impacket. Examples, and it's going to be GetNPUsers.py. We'll go ahead and run that against the domain, so egotistical bank.local, and for the users file we will run that users file that we created. So Sauna users. With that in there, we need to, if it pulls down anything, we need to just specify we want it in format Hashcat. And it really doesn't matter too much because we can do that in John as well. And then we'll type the output file, and we'll put it in the same folder. So HTTP Sauna, and we'll call it just out. We'll define the DC that we're going to be using. So TCP/IP 175. Go ahead and let that run. And I do believe we defined the domain. There it goes. Okay, so you got to add that little slash there in the domain. Oh, so by pulling that, we do see we had a couple. Nothing really popped until we got to the hsmith doesn't have, don't require pre-auth. And when you look at some of the Kerberos attacks, especially with ASP rep roasting, one of the things that they're going to look for is the pre-auth. And the way that it works, and maybe this diagram will help a little bit. Normal, when you're doing pre-auth, the user will know the password. They'll encrypt the timestamp with that information and pass it to your ticket granting server, so your TGS. At that point, they will validate it by decrypting it and going, okay, that's a good timestamp. And then it will go ahead and issue a ticket at that point, and you can go talk to another server. Well, with the user like hsmith, it's going to say no pre-auth required. So really, the user will just request a ticket, and the servers will issue a ticket, granting ticket. That's it. So at that point, you're going to get a ticket back, and all you got to do is crack it. And that's what we're going to do right now. So we defined that the file was going to be sitting in the Sauna out. So let's go ahead and say just cat out. And right there, you can see that we've got a nice output. Oddly, it's not hsmith, it's fsmith. So if we go back to that website, we know that the F was Fergus Smith. That was one of the users that was part of the team on the About page. And it is a Kerberos AS rep ticket. So we're going to go ahead and crack that, and hopefully we can get the information for F Smith. So in order to format this, we're going to go ahead and just ask for Hashcat. We'll get in the right window, Hashcat, and help. And then what I want to grep for, because we're looking for what kind of attack to use, so what method. So grep, and we'll just say AS, because we know it's AS rep, but I'm not sure how it's formatted. So when you come in here, okay, so here's your Kerberos 5. This is AS rec pre-auth, and this is AS rep. So we should be looking for the 18200. So we'll go ahead and just type in Hashcat, and then we'll do the M18200. Force the graphics. Tag 0, so we're going to use a dictionary, and then we need to make sure that we pass it the file. So in this file, we're going to do out, and then we'll just pass it user share wordless, and then do rocku, rocku.txt. Go ahead and pass that. And as it processes, we'll give it a minute, and it should be hopefully come back pretty soon with one of the passwords for F Fergus Smith. Oh, and there it comes back. So if you look at the way that they issue these in Hashcat, here's everything that we put into it ahead of time. And then right there is where it breaks and it goes into the password. So the password for this one is capital T for the strokes 23. So now we've got a password, we've got a username, F Smith. So let's go ahead and see if we can get in just by trying to use Evil-winRM. So user F Smith, password B Strokes 23. We'll give it the IP of 10.10.10.175. And we're in. Sweet. So this one hasn't been too bad. So we'll go back and do desktop. And there's our user. So we'll just cat user for the heck of it. And there's our user. So we've got to user. At this point, we've got to figure out how we're going to pivot and get to the administrator. Now we've done the roasting part. Now we got to get into the DC sync. So we need to find out kind of what permissions are running on which users. And the best way to do that is to use Bloodhound. So for this one, I had a few difficulties. Make sure that you're running the most current version of Bloodhound and SharpHound together, because version 2 is not compatible with version 3, and there's been a couple updates in the last couple months, so just keep that in mind. The best way to get that is to get it right off of GitHub, go to the master tree, pull down the newest version of Bloodhound, and it should have SharpHound in it. Otherwise, you can just look for SharpHound 3 and pull that down. So for my purposes, when you're using Evil-winRM, you can upload, download files. But in this case, I went ahead and I want to start a web server. So we'll go over to our var www HTML. I've already got SharpHound sitting in there. I have Mimikatz, SharpHound, a lot of the tools I use a lot. I'll put in that file just so I know that if I go ahead and run that, most of the tools should be there, and then if it's not, it'll be a onesie-twosie situation. So we'll just go ahead and do a sudo python m simple HTTP server on 80. Now that we've got that running, we will invoke web request. So IWR, we'll give it a URI, so 10.10.10, well, this will be mine, so 10.10.14.54, and we'll go ahead and say SharpHound.ps1, and we'll give it an out file, and I try to use full path name, so C users F Smith. We'll go to downloads, SharpHound.ps1. Now that it's uploaded, let's go ahead and bring it up. So we'll import module. And this is very important. When you're importing modules, you have to use not just the module name, but some kind of path to reference either the folder that it's in or a different folder. In this case, we haven't gone to, we'll go ahead and move over to downloads to show you. So cd downloads. SharpHound's in there. If I do import module and then I say SharpHound PS1, not going to work because what it's looking for is in the default modules file folder. So you're not going to find it because it's looking completely somewhere else. What we want to tell it to do is look where we're at. So / just make sure to put that in. So we've imported the module, so we'll just do Invoke-Bloodhound. And now we got to give it a few details. We'll start with the domain, so just dash domain. And we know that that one is egotistical bank.local. We also want to make sure we define the collection method. There's a couple different ways to go about it. I try to just stick with all. It's a safe bet. Gets us the most information. And then we'll define the domain controller here, and which is going to be the same thing, egotistical bank.local. And then we're also, if we run this, it doesn't really work very well because we need to run it under LDAP. As you saw with Kerberos, the user didn't really exist, but the user exists under LDAP. So we're going to define that and just say LDAP user F Smith, and then just LDAP pass. So that ran, we'll go ahead and do an ls. And now you can see that there's a zip file in there. It ran a bin. But the zip file is really what we're looking for. So we'll go ahead and download that. And this is where I do use winRM's power. So just download, and then I'll copy this. Put that in there, and then I'll just call it bh.zip. So when it saves to our file structure, it'll be bh.zip. So we'll go ahead and move over to this other tab. And we see bh.zip, so we'll just do a makedir bh, and then I'll unzip it. And really, you know what? Let's not unzip it. You really don't need to do that. But in order to get it into Bloodhound, there's kind of two things that you need to do. You need to start by running the Neo4j console, and that needs to be run with sudo rights. And then you've got to kind of configure that if you haven't done it before. The first time you need to configure a new password. And then you'll go ahead and run Bloodhound. So let's do that. Neo4j console. See? Didn't run as sudo. So what that's going to do, it's going to start up a database, and it's going to be running a little bit. The console to do configuration is going to be on port 7474. But the database that we're going to try and connect to with Bloodhound is going to be on that 7687 that you see on the screen. So we'll go ahead and open that up. There's a couple different versions of Bloodhound that I've got on my computer. So we'll go ahead and go into just BHX64. That's the newest one that I kind of downloaded. Clean this up a little bit. We'll go into that one, and it's got the executable right there. So if I just say Bloodhound, it's going to come back, and that also needs to be run with sudo. But it's going to come back with another error that I've had, which is asking about sandbox. So it'll come back, kick back, say just run this with no sandbox. And it'll go ahead and run. It'll pop up this nice window. Using these settings that you configured back on port 7474, like I mentioned, if you've never run it before, you just need to go in there and specify a new password. So just make sure to specify that it is Neo4j. It shows it in gray, but it doesn't really treat that as a default. It just kind of treats it as a placeholder. So with this loaded up, we'll go ahead and go over here. If you've never used Bloodhound before, it's a pretty cool tool, but the first thing that you need to do is upload data. You can upload individual files. Back out of there, and I'll show you this clean run. So here's my bhzip. Like I said, I started making a folder, but I didn't unload it. We're going to go ahead and just pull it right in. And it knows how to process the zip, pull the JSONs out of there. And if you look over here, you'll start to see some of this information populating. So it knows there's 6 users, 1 computer, 52 different groups. There's a little bit of information that we can find there. Can't really see anything right now. So here's the big list of things. So you can say find all domain admins, and those are the only 2 that are out there. So that's what we're going to be looking for. What's the shortest path? Okay, it's gonna, pretty little dog. Domain admin, enterprise admin. That's really not helping us out. We can try and say, hey, find the Kerberosable users. There's none. But we'll go back up here And as you click through them, you'll find that one of the issues that you have is desync rights. DC sync rights. So here's a nice little graphic. You're trying to get to admin, and it's going to show that it's a member of enterprise admins, it's a member of domain admins, which are all members of admins, which can get changes from here. And then as you kind of circle back, domain controllers, they have rights. And then there's one kind of hanging out here. The service loan manager account, SVC_loan MGR account exists, and it can also get changes to the domain. So this is going to be the real target account that we're going after. We kind of see that as a vulnerable fact in Bloodhound. So how do we go after that? There's two different ways that I was able to pull this off once we get the credentials. So the first thing we need to do is actually get the credentials. And this was fairly easy if you're sitting in this login right here. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to invoke a web request. I'm going to tell it, here's my URI, 10.10.14.54. And then I'm going to give it winPEAS.exe. And we're going to outfile to users F Smith, and we'll call it winPEAS. I don't really care about the capitalization. It's a factor when you're trying to download it, but after that it doesn't really matter. Could not find path. Oh, Dune loads. Not good. My typing not good. So we see it there. We're going to go ahead and run it. So winPEAS.exe. Let's see what we can find as we start to enumerate this box. We already know we're kind of looking for something when it comes to the service count, but let's see what winPEAS gives us. All right, so I'll scroll back up here so we can start from the top. PowerShell version 2, PowerShell version 5. We know we're sitting on Sauna, so nothing extreme. And we'll keep moving down. And honestly, you don't have to get very far, because what you're looking for is right here. Auto login credentials. Right there, we knew we were looking for the service loan manager. Money makes the world go round. But it's a little bit interesting. We'll talk about that. So you see it's service loan manager. Go ahead and copy that. And we're going to go ahead and exit, because I want to come down here and try that. So service_loan manager. Now, I don't know if anybody watching this has noticed, there's a slight difference here. So we were told the auto login was that account right there, loan fully spelled out manager. But if you go back to Bloodhound, this one is a different account, service loan MGR. A little strange. So this one kickback is nothing. Let's go ahead and try that end around and just say MGR. Same password, and we're in. So now we're sitting at slightly elevated privileges. It's kind of a user 1, user 2 scenario, but that's not quite enough. We do know that it's got the DC sync rights, which allows it to go out and pull information about other users. So this is a big weakness, and this is where we get into two different methods. You can either use Impacket's secretsdump, or you can use Mimikatz. Since we're already sitting here at the service loan manager account, we're going to go ahead and start with the Mimikatz, and then I'll go back and show how you would do it if you're going to do it straight from a Kali or any other Linux box. So we'll go back and just go to downloads. And we'll do the same thing. Invoke web request, URI 10.10.14.54. And in this case, we're just going to say Mimikatz.exe. Make sure we put it in the right folder. So lone mgr downloads Mimikatz. And it's sitting in there, so it doesn't have any kind of guards on it. There's nothing scanning the files going, that's not a good file to have on here. One of the issues that I encountered when I was running this is Evil-winRM doesn't work well with Mimikatz. It's not a normal shell, so it kind of freaks out, and you'll see that here in a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the kind of default command. If you go look on the internet, there's some pretty common commands that you can run that will just go ahead and tell Mimikatz from the get-go what to run. And it's going to be the LSA dump, it's going to be the DC sync, and then you're going to be trying to pull the administrator credentials. That's the bottom line. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. I'm going to show you what we're looking at. So Mimikatz, LSA dump, DC sync. We're going to tell it the domain. And then here's the user. We're trying to get the administrator. We are trying to get the administrator. But when I run it, it's going to run a whole bunch of extra lines. So I'm going to try and kill it right away just to make it easier to find. So we'll run it. And then there's all those extra lines. We'll go ahead and just kill it. I get super annoyed by all that. So there's where we ran it at. And right away, we've got the hash. So here's your NTLM hash. This is the information you're going to need. So we're going to go ahead and try and log in with that. So the D9485 is what you're looking for. And we've already canceled, so I'll go ahead and type up. We're going to change this to administrator. We're not going to be using a password, we're going to be using a hash, so we'll go ahead and change that from P to H. We'll drop that in, and now we're administrator. So we'll go ahead and back up, go to desktop. There's our root, so we'll cat root. Now we have the user, we've got the root, and we're done with this box. But I do want to go back and I want to cover one of the other tools that's available, which is Impacket's secretsdump. It allows you to do what Mimikatz does, but from an external box. So let's take a look at that. Start by closing this out. And we'll clear the screen. So you can do a sudo secretsdump and then do a help. Gives you some information, some of the things you want to do. This is really what you want to focus on at the top is the target. So domain, username, : password @ target. All right. Now you have the option for just DC. So extract only ntds.dit data. So if you just want to pull out the hashes, the Kerberos keys, which is what I did, you can just pull out the NTLM keys by saying just DC NTLM. You can pull out just specific users, but I just kind of just dump the whole hash. So the easiest way to do that is sudo, and we'll do secretsdump again. And then we'll say just DC, egotistical, bank.local, and we will specify the user that we're currently using to get that. So the same account we just used, which was the service, so svc _lone mgr, and then we'll give it that money makes the world go round, exclamation point. We'll close that off and say it's at 10, 10, 10, 175. We'll go ahead and run that. And right there, we've got all the hashes for the different users. And if you come in here, here's your D9485. The same one that we used to log into winRM is the same one that we found through Mimikatz. You can find it through secretsdump. You can come down here, you'll see the hash for fsmith, hsmith, loan manager. You can log in with all of these just by passing the hash to Evil-winRM, or you can go back and try and get the passwords. Sauna is the big account. I was able to do some enumeration on that the first time around, but I realized that it wasn't essential to try to get to root. So here's a short, quick and dirty way to go through Sauna. It's a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I would like to say thanks to Egotistical Southwest, I'm guessing. Egotistical SW is a good box. I'll say thank you guys for watching. Every week that I'm able to do one of the boxes, I'll be out here. I spent the week really pushing hard on Fatty, expecting that to be the retired box. So this was a nice and easy way to finish off the week. I hope it was some good information. And I will see you guys next time.